What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning into this episode of English Turks, where I review your favorite Turkish series with and without English subtitles. And today we're gonna do a catch up with me on Adim Farrah. Now, guys, I have been watching Adim Farrah every episode. I watched the English translation on a Thursday. I love this show, okay? So since you guys haven't seen a review from me since episode 1, this is going to be like a catch-up because I did have a review for episode 2, and then it just kept getting copyrighted, and that just drove me nuts. No matter what I did, it just kept getting copyrighted, and so it's just been crazy since then. But now that we're like moving on to episode, I think it's 6, episode 6 airs, and soon, I think it's tomorrow, and I'll be watching it on Thursday. So I just wanted to do a quick like what's going on in the series. Hopefully everybody's able to find the English translations, but if you aren't, I would implore you to go and find some Adim Farrah groups on Facebook, because there are people always in these groups that are always sharing links to the English translations. Okay, so let's talk about it. So far, we are at this point, which if you were able to see my review of episode 2, you would have seen that I predicted that they were going to get married, and we already see from the fragment for episode 6 that that's where we're actually heading. So since episode 1, a lot has happened. Farrah has been doing this back and forth on whether she's going to actually be the witness or whether she's not. And in the last episode, she was in a really tight situation because she decided that she wouldn't, since Tahir told her that they found a donor. The donor is willing to fly out and give his, I guess his kidney or something to Karim Shah. So basically, she's like right about to tell the prosecutor everything. The chief is there, his assistant or whatever is also there. And Tahir calls her and stops her in her tracks. Basically, he doesn't know that she's there, but he tells her like, hey, the donor has agreed to come. We're in the clear. Let's go to the doctor or whatever. So Farrah gets herself out of there, which obviously pisses off the chief, and he's upset with Farrah. So he finds out that Farrah actually does go to the hospital. Thank God she said, I have to go to the hospital with Karim Shah. So that part was truthful. The chief actually ends up finding her at the hospital, but then he, tries to force her into still giving the confession because he's under the impression that it is really Tahir that killed the police officer, but little does he know it isn't. But he's like really gung-ho on getting Tahir. And if you didn't know from the episode before, she actually made an agreement with the chief because Tahir, from his aga, his father, or his adoptive father, his boss or whatever, actually set him up and had him go to one of their enemies' facilities to deliver a message. But the message that he gave him said that, hey, Tahir knows what happened to your son, I think, or something like that. So then they tortured Tahir, and Farrah ends up finding out from one of Tahir's men, finds out that Tahir might be in a difficult situation. So she makes a deal with the chief saying that she would testify if he was able to get Tahir out alive and set him free. So the chief follows through. I mean, Tahir was getting himself out of the situation anyway, but he ended up following the car that had Tahir in it because they were taking Tahir somewhere, I guess, to kill him. And he ended up following the car, and Tahir jumps out of the car, runs, and then the chief lets him go. Now, he's thinking the chief lets him go because he got shot for the chief. But in actuality, the chief let him go because he made the deal with Farrah that she would testify if, the chief was able to save Tahir's life. So Tahir doesn't know about this. And so the chief finds Farrah at the hospital and tells her like, hey, you need to testify. And she's like, I don't think I'm going to testify or something like that. Or basically she tells him like, I will testify, but let my son get better first because they're going to pay for his health. So I'd rather they pay for his health than testify before that because my son might not get healed. But the chief prosecutor isn't having it. So I'm still not absolutely sure like how this happened. I have a feeling that it was a chief that told them to pick up Farah because she's an illegal immigrant, take her to the immigration place, and his idea was to keep her there until she testified. And obviously that's going to freak out Farah because, her son was left behind, and she left her son in Tahir's hand, who doesn't even really know how to take care of him, but at least she trusts Tahir enough to, keep an eye on him. And nobody can get in touch with Ghanul because Ghanul is out there hanging out with Khan. So we'll get back to that one. And so she ends up she goes to this immigration facility, and he's basically going to keep her there overnight because there's supposed to be an immigration bus coming, but it's coming the next day. Well, I guess the Aga, which is Tahir's boss, finds out that she's at the immigration station, so he gets them to pick up the immigrants early. Now the chief is not there. He doesn't know that the immigrants have been picked up, and Farah is doing everything in her power to get out of that bus, but she can't. And Tahir ends up finding out where she is through the lawyer. Now remember, the lawyer, who I guess is the Aga's brother's wife. She's a lawyer, and she's just trying to keep the peace. She's trying to stay a little neutral, but she has her family back. So she helps Tahir to find the girl, and they end up chasing down the bus. By the time they get to the bus, the chief also gets to the bus, and Farah basically hugs Tahir in that moment because she realizes, man, this man really is willing to take care of me. Now, Tahir is obviously in love because he is literally went against his boss. He went against everything he knows just to make sure that Farah doesn't die and that Karim Shah is still taken care of, which is crazy because the Aga made the promise to make sure that Karim Shah is treated, and he's still sticking to that promise despite the fact that, Tahir has basically turned his back on him, and Tahir has cut ties because in the beginning it was oh, I owe you my life and all this stuff. But then because, the boss tried to manipulate things by almost killing him, Tahir's I'm dead to you from the time that you sent me in there. So I don't owe you anything anymore. So he's basically cut ties. He is his own man now. He's going to become his own Aga, and obviously he's going to be against his old Aga, his old father, or old boss, I should say. So Farah is now moved in to Tahir's house, but Tahir gets the inclination that, Farah might not be telling him everything because she's trying to understand the relationship between Farah and the chief, and the lawyer kind of told him, don't you think it's a little weird how they're responding to each other? And so he leaves Farah at the house. He finds out from his ex that she had told the chief that the person that fell out the car was Farah. So he kind of tricked her into some questioning and kind of got her to admit that, he tricked Farah by keeping her in the house. And he tells her hey, the chief has said he has a witness, but don't worry, everything will be fine. So then she ends up calling the chief, and he has security cameras in his house. So he ends up calling the chief, and the chief ends up, she's arguing with the chief over the phone, and he's hearing everything. But she also confesses to the chief that it wasn't Tahir that killed the police officer. Now, in the fragment, you see that Khan is actually in police custody, but I doubt that he's in police custody because of the murder. I think he's in police custody because, which I think it was also in the summary, if you read the summary for episode 6, it's that, remember, the mom caught Ghanul holding Khan's hand because now they've confessed that they like each other and they want to be together and whatever, and she catches them walking in the street holding hands. So my impression is that she ended up telling the chief, which is Ghanul's brother, and then the chief ends up finding a reason to arrest Khan because he's angry about it. But obviously it's not because Farah told, which who knows in the next episode if it's going to be that the family's going to go after Farah before they find out what he was really arrested for. But also at the same time, the chief told Farrah that, hey, Iran found out that you're here and they are requesting for you to get back, and they want you back. And there's obviously some reason like she really doesn't want to go back. And so in the fragment, we see that she has the option to be the witness, and they'll give her papers so that she could stay. But then she's offered by Tahir the hand of marriage. Like, if you just marry me, then you'll be a citizen. And obviously we know that's where it's actually going to go. So the fragment's a little bit confusing, but I think it's backwards. I think Tahir actually tries to approach her and says, you know what, I'm going to cut ties with you. So the whole episode is going to be them cutting ties. And then at the end of the episode, I think that's when he's going to say, why don't you just marry me? I think that's what's going to end up happening. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about the past recent episodes. I didn't get a chance to really talk a little bit about Gonul and Khan, but we already know. We already know what's going on there. And there's also that thing going on with Khan's mom and Gonul's dad. But you know what? If the old ones couldn't live their love together, the young ones will do it for them. It always happens like that in all of these love series. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm not going to add pictures, guys, or videos. Maybe pictures, but not videos. And I'll talk to you guys after episode 6. Bye!